first thing we're going to do is I'm going to introduce myself to you. We're going to go over a little bit about me. I am a type of person that I'm the type of person that believes the better I know you and the better you know me, the better I can teach you. And naturally, it would. All right. So I'm the type of, like I said, I'm the type of person that I think the better I know you, the better you know me, the better I can teach you. So if you think about like your friends that you have, the better, like your friends can explain stuff better usually because they know you and they know what makes sense and what doesn't make sense, and they know what you like and what you don't like and that sort of stuff. So the better I know you, the better you know me, I think the better I can teach you. So I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about me. So, like I said, I'm Mr. Farrell. Mr. Jones and Miss Stafford, they're co-teachers in some of my other classes. So we won't see them. You guys probably know who Mr. Jones is, who Miss Stafford's new this year. Little bit about me. Hey. No, you're good. So you need to be sitting back there by lab S3. Okay, the one without, there's a spot without an X. So sorry, online kids. So little bit about me. This is my 5th year at Southeast. I went to school to teach biology, so I kind of know what I'm talking about. And I love Southeast. I will say that. So Southeast is great. I think you guys kind of know. But I've taught other places, and I really do enjoy Southeast. So this is my fam. This is a family. So this is my dad, and this is my mom. This is my dog here. So this is Oscar. Oscar's 11. Oscar thinks he's a person. I'm convinced he thinks he's a person. If you can tell, he's sleeping on his back, and he does that regularly, which is kind of weird. And he lives with my mom and dad because he really gets separation anxiety. And it's kind of sad, but kind of cute at the same time. My mom and dad came and visited me a couple weeks ago. So they live in Louisiana, and they drove up here and they brought Oscar along. And when my mom and dad stayed at a hotel, but Oscar stayed in my apartment because the hotel wouldn't let pets in. And so he stayed with us. And when my mom and dad were around, he was good, but he did not like it when they left. He was like, you could just tell he was looking for them. Did not like it at all. So he lives with mom and dad because he's more comfortable with that. That's all he knows. These two right here, these are my sisters. So there's 3 of us. I'm the oldest. Stephanie is the middle child of us 3, and she lives with me. So you guys will probably hear me talk about her from time to time. And then this is Rachel. So Rachel's my baby sister. If you guys have siblings, you probably know what I'm talking about. I think she's like 13 in my mind, but she's not. She's 21. So I don't like, for some reason, little siblings, you always feel like they're younger than what they really are. But I'm coming to terms with that because this guy right here is her husband. That's Matt. So I have a brother-in-law now. They got married in December. Stephanie graduated from college last August. She had a communications degree. And then Rachel, she's doing online school. And she's in her junior year. She's doing business. So she's almost done. Like I said, she's not really a baby no more. She's kind of a full-blown adult. Maybe a little more of an adult than I am, but I don't know. At this time, I need the following students. Nathaniel Okay, sorry on the recording. We're going to mute you guys when there's announcements. That way you guys don't have to hear that. So when you hear the mute, we're just preventing you guys from hearing the announcements. Anyways, going back to where I was, I love science. Science is one of my favorite things, but something I love more than science is sports. I don't know how many of you guys like sports. A couple of people, yeah? Does anybody play any sports? Yeah? What do you play? Wrestle. Okay, so you know Mr. Jones then. Okay, gotcha. All right. So if we're talking, I watch a little bit of everything. I'm more of a fan of college than the pros. I think it's just better quality. My team is Missouri. I'm from Missouri. That's why. So the way I see it, I'm in Georgia. I'm not a Florida fan. I'm not a Tennessee fan. I'm not an Alabama fan. So, I don't think we should have any problems there. I like music. So I grew up, I was actually in band in school. I listened to music. You didn't know that? No? I don't give that vibe, do I? So, yeah, I was in band in school. I play music. So everybody was like one of the big things people were talking about coming up with a new skill during quarantine. So one of the things I did, like I've always wanted to learn how to play like something that has strings, so like a guitar, bass, or something like that. And so I looked up guitar prices and realized, hey, that's kind of expensive. So I went with something similar, but a lot cheaper. So I bought a ukulele and I was working on teaching myself that. So it's fun. I enjoy it. It gets my mind off of school or whatever. So if I need a break, that's a pretty good break. I enjoy that. More about me. I like to play sports. It's kind of hard to do team sports right now because of COVID. So really the only thing that I'm consistently messing around with is golf. I enjoy that. I enjoy being outside. So I think that's one of the reasons I enjoy golf. And it's a challenge, and I like a challenge. So it's something that's intrigued me. I picked it up while I was in college, and I enjoy it. So I also like to travel. I told you I like being outdoors. These pictures here, these are from New Orleans. So my parents, I mentioned, are from Louisiana, or they're not from Louisiana, they're living in Louisiana. And these are from New Orleans. I like to travel just because you can experience different places, see things that you don't see normally. Like, for example, these buildings, we don't see a lot of buildings that look like this around here. You might see something similar, but not like all the buildings are like that. So that's kind of cool to see. And it's also cool because you can see, I like history. A lot of these buildings in New Orleans, especially around the French Quarter, they're old buildings. So it's not uncommon to see a building that's over 100 years old and to see buildings from the 1800s or possibly 1700s or 1600s. I think the cathedral in New Orleans is really old too. I don't know off the top of my head, but it's cool to see that and then just experience the culture and the different foods. I like food. So seeing different places, trying different foods, those are things that I'm about. These two pictures here, these are from Louisiana also. Have you guys heard of Tabasco? The hot sauce? It's not a good hot sauce, but Tabasco is made in Louisiana. And so this was next to the factory. The guy who invented Tabasco back in the day, he was also really big into nature. And so he had a bunch of land that he turned into this garden/park and has a lot of different plants, trees, flowers, things like that. It's really cool. And the trees are super cool. I don't know if you guys have ever got to go in the deep south, like kind of around the coast, but they have something they call live oak trees. And the reason they call them live is because it's warm enough to where they don't lose their leaves. So these trees, they look different. They're not really tall, but they're like wide and their branches go straight out. They don't like go at an angle, and like their branches are huge. And they look like really good climbing trees. So those just fascinate me. This is more what I did this summer. So we got to go to a Louisiana beach. A lot of beaches you hear about Alabama, Florida, South Carolina. You hear about those beaches. So we were like, what are Louisiana's beaches like? Let's go check out a Louisiana beach. So this was what the Louisiana beach was like. It's a place called, Grand Isle. I just lost it for a second. It's a place called Grand Isle, Louisiana. You guys might have heard about it if you were watching anything about the hurricanes last week. So they were talking about Grand Isle. And right here, this is a screenshot I took of the location. It looks kind of like you're out in the ocean, but you're not really. There's a bunch of kind of islands here. And so you kind of are island hopping. You take a bridge to get here. And it's a really neat place. I should have put a picture of some of the houses, because the houses are on poles and they're 6, 10, some of them are like 15 feet up in the air. So they're tall enough to where people will park their cars under their house or park their boat under their house. It's pretty interesting if you guys haven't seen that before. This is Mike the Tiger. All right. If you guys are college fans, this is LSU's mascot. And Mike, this is next door to Mike. Mike lives next door to LSU Stadium. So that's another thing I did. My parents said, you need to go visit Mike. And so we went and visited Mike. Places I've lived, I was born in California. I spent most of my life in Missouri. I grew up in Missouri. I went to high school in Missouri. Then I went to Lee. So I moved to Tennessee. And about the same time, my family moved out to New Mexico. So I kind of split some time between New Mexico and Tennessee. And New Mexico was really cool. It's definitely different than anywhere around here because there's not a lot of green. Everything's flat. There are some mountains. Everything's flat. It's dry because it's in a desert. But it's really cool to visit and to kind of experience. And there's a lot of good food out there. And I miss the food out there. A lot of good stuff. And like I said, my family, they now actually live in Louisiana. So they have lived there for 2 years now. Movies and shows. If you want to know if sports doesn't interest you, we can talk movies, shows, that sort of thing. Definitely a nerd when it comes to that. I like the Marvel stuff. I like Star Wars. I like Harry Potter. So I'm kind of reeling because my favorite Marvel character was Black Panther. And so Chadwick Boseman dying, I'm like completely shocked on that one. Did not see that one coming at all. Shouldn't have shocked me because it's 2020, but still, it doesn't make it hurt any less. And if we're talking shows, I'm not an Office person. I'm the OG, which is Friends. So if you guys have ever seen Friends, or if you haven't seen Friends, you need to go give it a watch. It's on TV. It's on HBO Max. If you have HBO Max. But if not, it's on TV. It's a good watch. It's before your time, but it's good. So that's a little bit about me. All right. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys a little bit about our classroom. I'm going to kind of show you how to turn stuff in, give you guys kind of ins and outs, show you some stuff that's on there. So let me switch over to, I'm going to show you the online class because there's more stuff posted there and there's more things that I can use for an example. So if we're looking at the Google page or Google Classroom, you'll see it starts automatically on the stream side. Now, it doesn't look like there's a lot on there, but there's more that's on there. The way I've set this up, and some of your teachers may do this, some of them may not, because it just differs how what a teacher prefers, what they're comfortable with, how much they know the technology, those sorts of things. So if you look at here, I only have one thing on the stream side, but classwork, there's a lot of stuff on classwork. So the stream side is more for announcements. So if you look at this announcement, you'll see that I told them we're going to have a Google Meet today, 9:03 during fourth period. And then I told them the code to join. It's going to be a little bit different for you guys from last year. If you had me last year, we used the class code. There's like a class code at the top. We're not going to use that because there's a better way around it. So you will you'll pull up a page, we call that the waffle. You'll hit the waffle. You'll go to Google Meet, and then it's going to ask for a code. And then I've given you that code. That code would be Feral Bio. And we're going to use Feral Bio. It's somewhere here, right here. We're going to use that code all year. So easy code, and there's some reasons here. So we're going to do 2 Google Meets a week. One of those Google Meets is going to be the live session or going to be recorded. So that first Google Meet, like I said, it's live or recorded. And think like Instagram Live or Facebook Live. So when you watch it, you can watch the live version. And if you're on at the same time, you can watch it and be on there and interact with the teacher. Or if you miss it, you can still watch it. It's just will be a video you go back and watch. And I'll put that in our classroom. The second Google Meet that we'll do a week, we're going to do it on Fridays. So Friday from 10:30 to 11, we're going to do that. And what that Friday Google Meet is going to be is that's going to be a time for you to hop on, and that's going to be a time for you to ask questions, get help, and that sort of thing. So if you're working on your work today and you have problems, you can hop on tomorrow morning, 10:30 to 11, using that same Feral Bio code. You can log on tomorrow morning, and we can kind of help you out. I can help you out there. So in class, kids, do we got any questions on that, how that works? Did I explain that pretty well? Okay, good. So that's a little bit about Google Meet. So your announcements, that'll be things like Google Meet times, what day we're recording. I'm normally not going to record on a Thursday. I'm going to try to do it on a Tuesday or Wednesday. That way you can have more time to watch it, and you can watch it as soon as possible. So the day that we'll do the first meet, the lesson, that's probably going to change. Now, I'm going to show you, we'll talk about this stuff up here real quick, and then we'll come back to that. Now, if you look, you see week 1, and then you have 4 things to do, right? Next week, you'll see week 2, and it'll have the date September what to whatever, and you'll see the things that are in that. And under that header, that's how many things you'll have to get done. So if there's 4 things under week 2, you'll have to get 4 things done. So I've tried to organize it and number it in a way that makes sense to you guys, because I know last year was kind of a mess when we had to go online, and so we're trying to do better. So it caught everybody off guard, so we're going to be doing better with that. Now, I'm going to get into these here in a second, but I want to take some time and talk about the class info. So if you look here, here's some stuff for Google Meet. So here's some info about what days we're going to be meeting, and the Friday thing, and the code, and just some instructions about Google Meet. If you don't, I kind of showed you guys how to join Google Meet. If you forget, you have this tutorial. It's really nice. It's got pictures. All right, sorry, recording, another announcement. So if you look here, you got pictures, and it shows you where to click, and it walks you step by step. You should be able to follow these instructions. All right. So I think you guys can handle that. We got Remind codes down here. We're going to join Remind later today. But if you can't today for some reason, they're there. We're going to join by day, though. So you're going to make sure you join Thursday's code. We have a code specifically for Thursday. So that way you don't get messages about a test and it's not even the day you're here. We'll go through our syllabus here later. I want to show you my Google site, because each teacher has a Google site, and I think there's some things on here that are really could be useful for you. This is more geared toward parents, but there are some resources here that you may be interested in. One of the things is a calendar. I'm going to show you the online calendar. That way you can see some stuff already pop up. If you're the type of person that needs to see what day it is and see when it's due and see how many days you have until it's due, if you're that type of person, That's a resource for you. So if, for example, with biology, with the online learning kids, their stuff is going to be due Wednesday night, 11:59 Wednesday night. So today's Thursday, so they got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days to do it. All right. And you'll have a calendar for your guys' one. So fourth period biology, I have uploaded work on that. So you can see it's going to be due Thursday. So you're going to have some time to do that. So if that's something that interests you, that's something you can use. Another thing is some school resources. If you're bad with technology, because some people, or you're just unfamiliar with it. So if you're not really good with Google Classroom because you haven't had that much practice, we have some links here that might help. So for example, Google Classroom. This lady here, Pam Pettyjohn, she's one of our tech people for the county. And what she's done is she's gone through and made a bunch of how-to videos, and she shows you where to click, and she explains what to do and what does this do when you hit this button and all sorts of things like that. So this is a playlist for Google Classroom. So if you don't know how to view your work or turn in stuff or complete an assignment, you can go through and watch those videos. And she's working on playlists for everything. She has a playlist for Google Classroom. She has a playlist for Gmail. And I think she's still working on some playlists for other things like Google Docs or Google Drive and all that sort of stuff. So if you haven't really got to work with those things or you're not really familiar with those things, then we have that resource there. And then this digital learning one, this is literally anything and everything you can need digital wise. So those are some good things for you. There's some other stuff on here. I'll let you guys check it out or parents check it out. I do want to show you this real quick just because for this reason. So syllabus is here. So if parents are like, do I have to sign a syllabus? Well, kind of. It's online. If you need a paper copy, I can make a paper copy for you at some point, but it's online. So the syllabus is here. Pretty simple. You can click on it to get the full version. I'm not going to go over that, but once you do go over that, one thing that's really helpful for me is to have parents fill out this contact info sheet. That way, if we do have to go virtual for some reason or whatever reason, if you're having problems, your parents can get in contact or guardians can get in contact with me, and I can get in contact with you if need be. Because like we said, last semester was kind of a mess and getting in contact with people was kind of hard. So filling this out would help us out a ton. And I'm going to put a little checklist to make sure you've done the things that you need to do. And I'm going to put it under class info. So it'd probably be like biology checklist or something like that. So that's the website. That's pretty much all you need. Now I'm going to show you guys, well, before I go there, you guys can see it's due. You can see the due dates here. So if you don't want to go to the calendar, if this is all you need, you can do that. Now, this is from the teacher view. So there's some buttons here that aren't here, and there's some things that look different than yours. So I'm going to show you guys from a student view. So this is just a test class. I kind of do stuff up here to make sure I can see what it looks like for you guys. You guys see how this one isn't colored and then this one has color? What that does is that tells you what you've turned in and what you haven't turned in. So when we are looking here and you see all four of these things have color, you know you turned in those. Now I'm gonna give you guys some more info here. When you click on it, it drops down. You can pull up this assignment, but I wouldn't do that. What I would do is I would go through, so this is where we were. When I open up, I wouldn't click on this. I would hit view assignment, because what that does is that gives you some more options. So if you're confused on something, you can write a private comment and you can type it out and only the teacher sees it, so no other students see it. Or if you're okay and you write a class comment for everybody, then you can put a class comment. So let's go underneath one of these ones that isn't turned in. So this one's turned in. So I'm gonna hit view assignment, and I have some options. I have those comment things down here. I have this add or create button. And what that does is that lets you add a document, add slides, add something from Google Drive that you already have made. So that's an option. You're not going to need that. I don't know if you'll even need that for our class, because I'm going to make stuff to where I've shared it with you already. You have a copy of it. So let me go into, this is actually a better example if I go to this one. So view assignments. Yeah, this one here. You already have a copy of this. So you don't need to make a copy. You don't need to hit share, because I'm the one who shared it with you. So you don't need to share it back. What's great about this is that I can see your work. So, you guys are familiar with sharing. I can get on here and see what you've done, but I don't really know if you're done unless you hit this turn in button. So this turn in button, super, super important. Some of you guys did this last year. I saw some people that didn't do this last year. This turn in button tells me that you're done. So you would do this, hit turn in, and then it's submitted. If you make a mistake or you forget to add something, unsubmit it. You can go back, you can work on it. But what that does is that tells me that you're done with it. So I can click on it. I know for sure that you're done. That way, if you haven't turned it in, I don't have to go through and I'm like, well, I don't know if they're done yet. And I don't grade it, or you get part of a grade. We don't want that to happen. Any questions about that? No? Does that help a little bit? Mhm. All right, sorry about online kids, another announcement. So bear with us, we'll get it done. So we don't have any questions on the classroom. Okay, awesome. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna we're gonna hop into our lesson for today. So we're gonna do a Nearpod. So are you guys familiar with Nearpod? You might have done one last year if you had Miss Howe. So, well, we're gonna get to learn something new today then. So I'm gonna call your name. When I call your name, you're gonna All right, I'm back. So you're going to go to nearpod.com. And it's going to show something like this. I had two of these pulled up. So it's going to show you something like this. Now, you guys see how it says students and then there's a code down here? Yes? Okay. So what you're going to do is I'm going to post a code here in a second. All right. When it gives you the code, what you're going to do is you're going to enter the code and then it's going to ask for your name. And guys, I need you to use first names and last names because you're going to throughout this presentation, it's some slides, but there's also going to be things you're typing. And so you're going to get a participation grade. So I need to know who's who. That way I can give you guys the points that you got. All right. So let's go ahead and get this code. Now, I will say this. You guys see how there's two options here? There's live participation and student pace. So we're going to do the live participation. We're going to do that in class. So if you're in class and you do live, you're going to do live participation. If any of my virtual kids hop on and they join us and do the live participation, they can do that too. Now, there's two options here. The student pace is something that I posted on Google Classroom. You only need to do one or the other. So if you do the live participation, you don't have to do the student pace one. If you do the student pace one, you don't have to do the live one. Now, what I would ask of you guys is if you're in class, do the live participation one. Because if not, you're just going to be bored out of your mind and I'm going to make you do it twice. Okay? But if you miss a day or you need some more practice on something, you're more than welcome to do the student participation one. If any questions about that? No? All right. So we're going to do live participation. Like I said, online kids, you're not live, so you're going to be doing the student-paced one. So my in-class kids, you're going to be entering this code. So it's similar to Kahoot in the way that you guys are working on the computer and I'm running the thing. It's similar in that sense. But it's like basically the best way to describe it is like interactive PowerPoint or interactive Google Slides, which is kind of cool. It lets us do some of those things that we can't do because of social distancing. Because I like to have you guys up and around and talking and conversing with people. So we can still kind of do that just at a distance. 2, 6, 8. Okay. So anybody still entering the code? All right, we'll give you a little more time. So, all right, so raise your hand if you're still working on the code, entering the code. All right. So like I said, you need to make sure you use your name. We're going to talk about characteristics of life. So you're going to go to nearpod.com. Okay, and then you're going to enter where there's going to be a red box. You're going to enter that code at the top there. So we're going to talk about characteristics of life. Before we talk about these characteristics, it's a good idea just to know what things are living and what things aren't. We're going to have to make that differentiation today. So we need to know what characteristics those living things have and what characteristics non-living things, why they're non-living, because they don't have these things. I'm going to hide names. Now, one thing I will say, guys, if you had me last year, you kind of know what I expect for this. But here, this question, this is more, what do you think? This is more of a participation type thing. So there's not necessarily a right or wrong answer, but you do have to put an answer to get points. And it does have to be an answer that has to do with the question. So if I ask about cells, I expect you to talk about cells. You can't be talking about football. You got to keep on topic. So here's our question. So in order to be considered living, organisms must have or do what? I'll give you a hint. There are 7 different things. You don't have, if you can come up with as many things as you can. If you can come up with one, that's awesome. I just gave you the hint that there's 7 because I want to see how many things you can come up with. So think about living things, all living things. All living things have 7 things in common. So think about that. We're going to give you 2 minutes to come up with an answer because I want you guys to try. I want to try to see 3, 4 things if you guys can come up with them. If you can come up with more, awesome. If not, no big deal. Okay, we're doing okay on top. So you got a minute and a half left. Once you are done, hit the submit button. I want to say you can, if you want to add something, you can unsubmit it and then add something and submit it back. So, but you need to submit it for me to be able to see it. All right, so about 40 seconds left. So keep working. Okay, got some answers here. Like I said, try to come up with as many things as you can. There's 7 things that all living things have in common. You guys are saying some good stuff, by the way. And as a little side note, well, I'll wait till my timer goes off because we got about 5 seconds. Okay, so 2 minutes are up. So finish your idea. So whatever you were typing, finish that idea up and go ahead and submit it. I will say this, guys, because I think some of you guys were doing it already, but if you want to kind of look up here to get an idea of some things, maybe use some other people for kind of some hints, you're more than welcome to do that as well. But there's a difference between using the comments up here to get hints and then just saying the same thing that they said. Okay? I want you to kind of use it as a hint to kind of jumpstart your mind, not say the same thing. Try to add something different. So eat other organisms, okay? Take or give energy, have cells, okay? I like that. Reproduction, grow, change, made of cells, okay? You guys are putting good answers. Feed off something, breathe in oxygen.
At this time of need, there's no hotel, Dennis Dolly.
Okay. This person used cardiovascular. They use a big word here. Reproduce. I like that. Reproduce and breathe. Just made up of cells. Okay. A lot of you guys said like things like eat or get energy and reproduce. And a lot of you guys said have cells. I like it. All right. So before we get into this, I'll tell you those 7 things here in a second. Before we get into this, we're going to talk about biotic and abiotic just for a second. You guys should remember this from last year. If not, I may get, well, if you were one of my kids last year, I'm going to get upset with you. Not really, but I want you to tell me what abiotic and biotic mean and give me an example. So biotic is this, an example is this. Abiotic is this, an example is this. So we're going to give you a minute on this one. This one should be something pretty quick. You shouldn't have to think too hard on this. So biotic and abiotic. Okay, so kind of finish up your idea. Okay, so living things, trees, plants, animals, abiotic, non-living, plastic, water, air. Okay, same kind of thing. Non-living example, a dead log. Okay. Non-living organism. Okay. Octopus in a rock. All right. So now let me ask you this. If I have, let's just use this pencil for example. Okay. So I'm just talking about the wood part of this pencil. Would you call this wood biotic or abiotic? Abiotic? What do you guys think? Because the wood used to be a tree, right? Yeah, we'd actually call it biotic because biotic is things that are living or used to live or part of a living thing. Abiotic, we're saying they had never lived. So there's a difference between non-living and like dead. So non-living things never alive, never will be alive. So things like rocks, water, plastic, temperature, the sun, things like that. But dead things, those things used to be biotic. So these things here, abiotic. These things here, they're biotic factors. Now, here's our number one. Here's our first thing that all living things have in common. All living things are made up of cells. They have some sort of organization. Now, this organization may be really simple. It may just be one cell, or it may be complex. It may be a bunch of cells that make a tissue, and those tissues make up an organ, and that's a part of an organ system, kind of like the stomach is a part of the digestive system, and all those things have to deal with the mouse. So all things have some sort of organization. It may be simple. So if we're talking about a bacteria cell. Bacteria is unicellular. Do you guys know what I mean by unicellular? One cell. So think like unicycle. Okay, the three letters UNI means one, kind of like a unicycle. So that's one skill that I would say to use. Think of words that have that same part that you know and try to figure out what that part of that word means. And then multicellular is more than one. So multicellular organisms are going to have some more organization just because there's more cells. So here's some blood cells. So these cells are a part of an organism, but they're not the whole organism themselves. This is just one level of organization for that organism. but all living things are made up of cells. Now, next question. What do you think of when you hear the word metabolism? I'm going to give you guys a minute and a half on this one. So write down what you think of when you hear the word metabolism. Got about 30 more seconds. Okay. Okay. Something you need for your body to have or have to live. Eating a lot. Okay. Think of the human body. Yeah, we mentioned metabolism when we talk about people. I think of a person that can eat a lot and still not gain weight. Okay. So yeah, that's usually a common thing that we see. A lot of people are saying things like that. Process of everything you consumed and like try to drain it. Okay. So just make sure that you hit submit when you're done with your answer. So yeah, we're seeing energy, we're talking about eating, and that's pretty much what we're talking about. Simply put, it's a way to get and use energy. So we usually think about fast or slow metabolisms and people with fast metabolisms. Usually we think of these like really skinny people that like burn off all their food. It's not always the case. You can have a fast metabolism and eat more than you need and store that extra energy. So you could do that. That's still possible. But that's usually what we think of. So if we're getting specific, it's all the chemical reactions happening. But chemical reactions are releasing energy and absorbing energy. So get and use energy. That's an easy way to think about it. So all living things get and use energy. Now, what are some different ways organisms get their energy? So think about all living things. Do they get their energy the same way? Do they get their energy a different way? If they do, what are those different ways? So same thing, minute and a half. You got about 20 seconds left. All right. So, okay. So this person says they get different ways. Humans eat and sleep.
At this time, I need Ron Holler. Can you run?
All right. We're back, online people. So plants use sunlight, water. Okay. Eat. So they eat to get energy. Other things, photosynthesis. Eating sunlight. Okay. Looks like you guys are kind of saying the same thing. Oh, this person said from chemicals. What do you guys think about that one? Not sure? No? Okay. Okay. You guys are saying pretty much the same thing. I like it. Now, how do plants get their energy? Okay, sunlight, photosynthesis, right? That's the process where they're making their energy or their food. Okay. Plants do need to eat, though. It's just they make their food that they eat. Because remember, we said photosynthesis is how they make their food. So they don't have to go catch their food or kill their food or eat their food. Now, we can't make our food. So we have to go catch it, kill it, and eat it. Now, let me ask you about this guy. Bacteria is living. So what do you think that they do? Do you think they eat? Do you think they do photosynthesis? Do you think it's something different? Okay, so you're nearpod.com. Okay, this code right here. You're gonna put that in the red box. So what do you guys think about bacteria? Do you think they eat? Do you think they do photosynthesis? Do you think they do something different? Maybe those chemical things? Just giving you something to think about. We're going to talk about some of this next week too. And just because I can, right? You guys know what athlete's foot is? Yeah. So athlete's foot is a fungus. So athlete's foot is living. So what I'm telling you here, athlete's foot has the ability to get and use energy. Kind of gross to think about, right? Like I said, I was going to do it because I can. I'm just trying to get you guys thinking about stuff. I mean, that's one of those things you don't really think about until somebody mentions it. Like, athlete's foot gets energy. Oh, you're more grossed out by feet. Okay. My sister's that way too. So, like we said, plants get their energy from the sun. We mentioned that already. Okay, here's the next example, homeostasis. So this is one that you guys probably haven't heard of, okay? Thumbs up if you've heard of this word, thumbs down if you have not heard of this word before, homeostasis. Okay, I need a thumb from everybody. Thumb up if you've heard of it, thumb down if you haven't. Okay, all right, so the way to explain this, homeostasis is a process. And what this process is organisms have a stable internal environment. So there's a sweet spot that they like to have. It could be a sweet spot for temperature. It could be a sweet spot for the pH of their body. That's how acidic or basic a solution is. It could be amount of water. Okay. And the best way for me to describe it is using an example here. And the example I'm going to use is body temperature. So do you guys know the body temperature that humans are normally at? 98. Do you guys point? Do you know the last number? You're close. It's 98 something. 98.6. That's on average. Some people run a little higher, some people run a little lower. So on average, it's 98.6, really close to that. So what happens if you get too hot? What happens? Okay, so I'm going to use an example of kind of a balance or like a seesaw, okay? So 98.6, everything's good, okay? What happens if that gets off balance and your temperature runs a little higher? You get hot, you sweat, and if it runs up there for a long time, not like exercising, you get a fever. Does your body feel good when you get a fever? No. Okay, so if you're out of balance, if you run too hot, you get a fever, you get sick. That's not good, right? Likewise, this is too hot. If we get too cold, have you guys heard of hypothermia? Okay, let me tell you how close this is, okay? 98.6 is our normal temperature. You start getting out of balance if you start getting 100, 101 degree fever. So just two or three degrees, you start getting out of balance. Likewise, if you go 2 or 3 degrees the other way, hypothermia starts kicking in 96, 95, 94 degrees, okay? 2 or 3 degrees one way or the other way is a big deal for us, okay? So your stable internal environment, maintaining homeostasis, is 96 degrees, okay? Now, your body, you're like, man, 2 or 3 degrees, that's not a lot, right? So your body has to find ways. If it starts doing this, you gotta get it even. Oh no, I'm starting to get off balance. I gotta get back in even, right? What does your body do if you start getting too hot? Your temperature goes up. You do get sick, but what does your body try to do to get your temperature back down? Yeah, you sweat. Exactly. Yeah. So I start getting hot, and all of a sudden my body's like, uh-oh, we're out of balance. We're gonna sweat. Get the temperature back down. Okay. If I go the other way, my body starts getting too cold. I start getting cold. What does my body do to get me back into balance? Think about when you're cold. What do you do when you're cold? You try to warm yourself up, but so you may do a behavior. You may put your hands under your arms or do that, but what does your body do naturally? It's hard to stop it. Do you shiver? Yeah, you start shivering, right? And that's your body's way of getting it back into balance, okay? So homeostasis is we like to stay at this balance, and my body's going to I'm going to do something to get back into it. Whether I sweat, so if I'm this way, if I'm this way and I sweat, or if I'm this way and I shiver, okay? My body's going to do something to keep at that stable internal environment. Does that make sense? All right, so that's what this picture is showing here. It's okay if you get this wrong. I just want to see how well do you understand this idea. So I've given you 3 examples of homeostasis and 1 that's not. I may have just described the process. I may have told you something that might be an example of your body getting back to a stable internal environment. So do your best, okay? If you get it wrong, I'm not going to count it against you. I just want to see how well do you understand this idea, because this is a new idea for most people. We can see if you guys beat some of the other biology classes. I'm not going to tell you what they were. I want to see if you can beat them or not, though. Starting off strong. Okay, still doing okay. More people right than wrong. Okay. Still more people right than wrong. Okay, we got one more person. Okay. So I don't remember what day it was. I think it was Tuesday. I think the best is we had a half and half. Okay, so let's kind of talk about these. Somebody read me A. I just told you that one was right. Okay, so I told you the process, what your body does to get back into homeostasis, right? This may be what it does to get back into that stable environment. Okay, what's B? Okay, drinking water when you feel thirsty. So we're talking keeping that sweet spot for water, right? Do you feel like drinking water is a way to get back to that sweet spot for water in your body? No? Okay. So if I have a certain amount of water, okay, if I get too little water, my body's going to tell me you're thirsty, and then you're going to drink water. And then that's going to get the right amount of water in your body. If I go the other way and I get too much water in my body, do you guys know what might happen? You might, maybe. What do you have to do if you drink too much water? Pee. That's your body's way of leveling out how much water is in your body. Have you guys ever drank like a lot of like something really quick and then you have to go pee like every 5 minutes, it feels like? That's because your body's getting that correct amount of water. It's like, whoa, we're getting way too much water here. Or you're drinking it too fast. Sometimes you need a lot of water, but you need to drink it slow over a long period of time. So it just depends. Okay, what is C?
Your breathing is for your body to get more oxygen.
Okay, I feel like you guys probably chose this one. This might have been a popular answer. I feel like either C or D was probably what you guys chose. Okay, so what's D?
You pull your hand back quickly after touching.
Okay, so if this is hot and I pull it back, do you think that's an example of homeostasis? That's more of a reaction, isn't it? So the one that's not an example of homeostasis is D. All right. If you guys didn't, what did you choose if you didn't choose D? Was it C? Was it B? Okay. So the answer is D. You do have a certain amount of oxygen, and what your body's going to do, if you start dipping below that amount of oxygen, if you start not getting enough oxygen, your breathing is going to increase. That way you get more oxygen. You're not ever really going to get too much oxygen, but if your breathing is going to slow, that way you don't have to burn as much energy breathing if it goes the other way. Okay, so I just told you examples there. We do gotta have hurry. All right, growth and development. So things are going to grow. Things are going to change over time. Now, yeah, we're not going to write on this next slide, but I am going to ask you guys this. Do you think growth and development are the same, or do you think they're two different things? Two different? Okay. What else do you guys, the rest of you guys, what do you think? The same? Different? Yeah? Different, Joe? Yeah? Yeah, you're right. They're two different things. We're going to skip that question. So growth is usually, when we're talking about growing, we're usually talking about your physical, the physical aspect, you getting bigger, or you changing physically. Development, some of that can happen physically because puberty is more of a development thing. So you might start to grow hair, your voice might change. Okay, those are more developmental things. But at the same time, there's some things that aren't, development can be things that aren't physical. So things like your brain developing, learning to read or write, learning to walk. Those are development things. Okay? Fun fact, your brain doesn't fully develop until you're 25. That's why it feels like you can't rent a car until you're in your 20s, by the way. That's one of the reasons why. And that's why it's so much for insurance when you guys are starting to get into cars. So your brain hits developmental milestones at 18, 21, 25. So that's why some of the ages are what they are. Like, why do you have to wait to drink or stuff like that? It's because you're hitting developmental points. reproduction. Things need to be able to reproduce.
At this time, when we
Okay, so a lot of you guys mentioned things need to be able to reproduce. When we say reproduce, really what we're talking about is passing genetic information to offspring. That's passing on DNA. DNA is genetic material to offspring. Do you guys know what we mean by offspring?
Yeah.
Kids, babies, the next generation, basically. Okay? Now, when we're talking reproduction, there's two different types. A lot of times we think of animals and we think of sex, okay? Two different parents, mama cat, daddy cat, make a baby cat, right? That's usually what we think of. But there's also a type that is known as asexual reproduction. And so what that means is without the aid of another organism. Do you guys remember when we talked about abiotic, we said that A means non or not or without? Okay, see, without another parent. So if it just has one parent, if it just has a single parent, it's like a clone. Now, we'll get into, there's pros and cons to both. Sometimes there's advantages for sexual reproduction. There's advantage for asexual reproduction. We'll get into that later in the year when we talk about that some more. And we'll talk about, there's different ways for asexual reproduction. There's cloning, there's budding, there's fragmentation. Different organisms do it different ways. So like I said, mama cat, baby cat, that's an example of sexual reproduction. Bacteria, they don't need two parents. They just need one parent. And so they're going to make a clone of themselves. There's, like I said, advantages and disadvantages to that. All right. All things respond to stimuli. Okay. A stimulus is some change in the environment. It might be a loud noise and you guys jump. Okay. You guys respond to the change, right? The change was me making a noise. You responded to that. Okay. It can be internal or external. So the change could be, which one is inside, internal or external? Internal. So the change could be inside your body. It could be outside your body. That noise, was that internal or external? External. Perfect. So some examples, you walk into a dark room. It's kind of hard to see if you went from a light room to a dark room. You changed your environment. But can you see eventually? Yeah. What happens? Well, your pupils dilate. Pupil is the dark part, not the colored part, right? So those pupils get real big and it lets more light in. Your eyes are responding to the dark, to the change in light. Likewise, another cool example is plants. Plants have things called tropisms. So tropism. There's a specific one called phototropism, and plants respond to where light is. So they'll grow towards light. So if you leave a plant in the window like this and you don't ever like rotate it, it'll eventually do something like this. And it's really cool. You can look up, and I promise, like you can look up stuff on like time-lapse videos on YouTube, and you can watch things like sunflowers and they'll sit and they'll follow the sun. You can look up time-lapse videos like that. But plants respond to their environment. They know where the sun is. They respond to where water is. They respond to gravity. I mean, you think about it, there's not like a top end and a bottom into a seed, right? You don't have to make sure you place it the right way. You just put it in the ground and it knows which way is up. Kind of cool if you don't think about it. All right. What do you think of when you hear the word evolution? Last one for today. Okay. Actually, let's do this. I won't make you answer this one because I want you to do the one after this. So Colin, you said change. Does anybody think anything different? No? All right. So when we're talking about evolution, we're talking about change in population. So we're not talking an individual. If I get taller or I learn an ability, that's more growth and development. Okay? So if we're talking about a person or an individual, that's more growth and development. If we're talking a species over a long period, over time, that's more evolution. An example of this is the peppered moss, and I'm going super quick, that way we get done. These are really cool because they used to look like this, and then during the Industrial Revolution, when we had a lot of factories being built and pollution happening because of those factories, trees are covered in ash and soot, and they turn, like the trees, instead of a brown, the bark being brown, it was covered in soot and black. All of a sudden, we start seeing more of these. Okay? That's because these ones here, these had an advantage. They blended in now. These ones used to blend in with the trees, but now that the trees are dark, these ones blend in. And all of a sudden, we see this population change in color to something like this. And we'll talk about evolution later, but populations can change over time. All right, here's your last thing. You have all 7 things there, those 7 characteristics of life, and your job is to match the thing, whether it's organization or evolution, to the descriptor or the example. So see how you do with this. This is kind of a good way to recap. How do I understand these words?